So based on the last video, you can see that it's not very difficult to construct accurately shadows. It's just a little bit labor intensive. And shadows should also not really be in front of your object, more behind the object, because we're using them to ground your drawing on the page. So they actually have more visual graphical function besides maybe giving a different ability to read your shape. But because they are behind your object, we can maybe get away by simplifying the way how we construct shadows. So that's what I would like to do in this video. So let's say we put a light on the left side. So I'm drawing some lines on the right side. Okay, so you see these lines are parallel, they're not horizontal, because I simply assume that my light comes from here. So all these light rays coming from there. Okay. So now I could take a straight edge. I'm going to use a ruler. And for example, say, this is the length of my shadow. Yep. So for example, let's line this one up there. Number 1. Number 2. And number 3. So as you can see, here is actually now my shadow, but more constructed, kind of like like a fake two-dimensional construction. Our object is 3D, our shadow maybe 2D. So let's maybe try and do everything where our lights maybe come from kind of like this direction. So what I will do first, I'm going to use my hard edge, and for example, maybe there put down some lines. Okay. A little bit more pressure so I see the lines. Okay. And then we can decide the angle of my shadow. That will be there. Okay, so and then I can finish the drawing. So there, based on how I set it up. No, wait, actually it goes to there. Yep. And there. So there's my shadow. See, this is actually a pretty fast way. The shadows are obviously not 100% correct, but they're somewhat believable. You see, for example, here in this case, with the way how this line is not rotated exactly the same way, so there it clashes a little bit. So obviously when you simplify the shadows, you're not 100% correct, but maybe in most situations that can be okay. Maybe to make this a tick better, we could maybe say, well, let's eyeball kind of like maybe the orientation, so maybe like this. So this line is more parallel with this one. Yeah, and you see, yeah, it's not too shabby. Okay. So here I have an object with certain surfaces, and I have an object that is on top. And that object, as you can see, is also rotated. It faces its own vanishing point. And I would like to create a shadow that goes to the right. So we're on a new layer. For example, I could put down maybe the first shadow lines there, okay? But I don't necessarily really know, well, where do they stop and how do they flow over the angled surface and then continue on that surface? So I have to do a little bit of construction work here first. So for example, from the vanishing point through this point here, I continue drawing a line, and then there I go straight down. And you see where this one goes to the vanishing point, where it meets. So here, there, I go back to the vanishing point, because then there I have kind of like the height, and this point is on the surface. So here I can draw a line down and go back to there. Oh, this looks confusing. Let's turn this off for the moment, and let's remove these lines so you kind of can see actually what I have constructed here. There. Okay, good. So let's dim this down a little bit. Perfect. Okay, let's go back to our ruler tool. So now I can go to here and make a line, and maybe there. Ooh, this shadow might shoot over the object a little bit. So there and there, and then obviously this one I can't connect, and I can't connect, and then I need to figure out kind of like where the shadow stops. So for example, I could go to there and there. So let's say here it stops, and then from this point basically to the vanishing point we draw a line, and there, for example, is now our shadow. So 1, 2, 3. Okay, so that shadow is a little bit tough to read, so we're going to make another shadow with a different angle for the shadow line. So let's remove some of this stuff. Perfect. Okay, so let's say the light comes down maybe this way. So the shadow's a little bit angled more in that direction. So first line, and again this is parallel. Next line, then I don't know on the ground, but you see now I move my ruler down. So find this point, because then that's there, and this point, that's roughly there. And then here I can connect those. But then I would like to know where it stops. So there, and then from there to there. Well, let's say we do it this way, so you see the shadow a little bit better. So you see actually that the last line I drew, then again that one goes to the vanishing point, but the other one we can keep a little bit parallel. So that's kind of like another fake approach how to make this shadow, and then we can just put some shading on it. Okay. So you see the advantage of those shadows is they're pretty fast, but they're also, based on the view, can be a little bit tricky, specifically when you're casting shadows onto objects. It can quickly be evident that your object is perspectively constructed correctly, but your shadow might kind of like look more two-dimensional. And then, then there you can just switch between 2D and 3D constructed or simplified shadows based on what you need.